Keanu Reeves froze mid-interview, walked into the Tonight Show audience, and revealed the childhood pain he'd carried for decades. The abandoned teen asking for help had no idea he was talking to someone who understood that exact betrayal. It was a crisp Wednesday evening at Studio 6B in Rockefeller Center, where The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon was humming with that familiar energy that made millions of viewers feel like they were part of something special. The studio was bathed in warm, golden lighting that created Jimmy's signature welcoming atmosphere, with nearly 200 audience members filling every seat with anticipation. Behind his iconic curved wooden desk, Jimmy sat with his trademark smile, while the Roots provided their seamless musical backdrop that transformed every conversation into something that felt both intimate and momentous. Across from him, in the guest chair that had welcomed countless legends, sat Keanu Reeves. At 60, he possessed that rare quality of someone who had aged gracefully while maintaining an almost mystical presence. Tonight, he wore a simple black suit that somehow managed to look both effortlessly elegant and deliberately understated, very much in keeping with his reputation as Hollywood's most humble superstar. His dark hair was slightly tousled, and his eyes held that characteristic depth that had made him one of the most compelling screen presences of his generation. The interview had been flowing beautifully, with the easy rhythm that comes when two people genuinely enjoy each other's company. They'd covered Keanu's recent projects, including the latest John Wick installment that had once again proven his enduring appeal as an action star. Jimmy had been particularly fascinated by Keanu's dedication to his craft, especially his insistence on performing most of his own stunts and his legendary kindness to cast and crew members. "I have to ask about your reputation in Hollywood," Jimmy said, leaning forward with genuine curiosity. "Everyone who works with you has stories about your generosity and kindness. You gave motorcycles to your entire stunt team. You've taken pay cuts so other actors could be cast. Where does that come from?" Keanu's expression became thoughtful, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "I think when you've experienced certain things in life, you understand the value of human connection," he said in that distinctive voice that somehow managed to be both soft and compelling. "We're all just trying to make it through, you know? And if you can make someone's day a little better, why wouldn't you? But you're talking about more than just making someone's day better," Jimmy pressed gently. "You've been known to give away millions. That level of generosity seems to come from somewhere deeper." Keanu paused, considering his words carefully. "I think when you grow up with instability, when you learn early that the people who are supposed to be there for you might not always be, you develop an appreciation for the ones who do show up. You want to honor that loyalty." The audience was hanging on every word, sensing that they were witnessing something more profound than typical late-night banter. There was something in Keanu's tone that suggested he was drawing from deep personal wells, speaking about experiences that had shaped him in fundamental ways. "You moved around a lot as a kid, didn't you?" Jimmy asked, his host instincts sensing there was more to explore here. "We did," Keanu nodded. "My mother, she did her best, but there were a lot of changes, a lot of new cities, new schools. It was..." He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "It was challenging to find stability." That's when the voice from the audience cut through the conversation, like a lifeline thrown to someone drowning. "Mr. Reeves?" The voice was young, uncertain, but carried a weight that immediately caught both Keanu and Jimmy's attention. Jimmy turned toward the audience, his experienced instincts sensing that something significant was about to unfold. Keanu's head turned toward the source, and something in his expression shifted, a subtle change that suggested recognition of pain calling to pain. "I'm sorry to interrupt," the voice continued, gaining strength with determination. "But I have to ask you something I've been wanting to ask for a long time." The cameras found him, a teenager who couldn't have been more than 17, wearing a simple gray hoodie and dark jeans. He had dark hair and serious brown eyes that held the kind of premature gravity that comes from carrying adult concerns on young shoulders. There was something about his posture, the way he held himself with vulnerability and determination, that spoke of someone who had learned early to be self-reliant. "What's your name?" Jimmy asked gently, his professional warmth creating space for whatever needed to be said. "Marcus," the teen replied, his voice steady despite the obvious emotion beneath it. "Marcus Chen. I'm 17. Keanu was studying Marcus intently, something in the young man's demeanor clearly resonating with him in ways that went beyond simple audience interaction. "What did you want to ask, Marcus?" Keanu said softly, his voice stripped of any celebrity polish, speaking human to human. Marcus took a deep breath, gathering courage for words that had probably been building inside him for years. "My father left when I was 3 years old, just like yours did. And everyone keeps telling me I should get over it, that I should be stronger, that it doesn't matter because I have my mom. But sometimes," his voice cracked slightly, "sometimes I feel like there's this empty space inside me, and I don't know how to fill it. How did you do it? How did you not let it break you?" The studio fell completely silent. This wasn't just an audience question anymore. This was one wounded soul reaching across the void to another, asking for a map, through territory that few people understood unless they had walked it themselves. Keanu froze, not just in the sense that he stopped talking, but in the way that someone freezes when they suddenly find themselves face to face with their own ghost. For a moment that felt like eternity. He just stared at Marcus, and in his eyes was a recognition so profound, it was almost painful to witness. Then, without saying a word, without asking permission from Jimmy or the producers, without considering the cameras or the format or the millions of people watching, Keanu stood up and walked into the audience. Behind him, Jimmy quietly stepped back, understanding instinctively that this moment belonged to something larger than entertainment, larger than late-night television, larger than anything that could be scripted or produced. Keanu reached Marcus's row, and audience members naturally shifted to make space, sensing they were witnessing something sacred. He stopped directly in front of Marcus, this global icon looking into the eyes of a teenager who was carrying the same wound that had shaped his own life. "Marcus," Keanu said, his voice barely above a whisper, but somehow carrying clearly through the silent studio. "How long have you been carrying this?" 14 years, Marcus replied immediately, the number obviously burned into his consciousness. 14 years, Keanu repeated, and in those two words was a universe of understanding. "And people tell you to get over it." Marcus nodded, tears starting to form in his eyes. "Marcus, can I tell you something I've never said in public before?" Keanu asked. Marcus nodded again, unable to speak. "My father left when I was 3 too. His name was Samuel Nowlin Reeves Jr., and for years, decades actually, I carried this feeling that there was something wrong with me, that I had somehow caused him to leave, that if I had been better, smarter, more worthy, maybe he would have stayed." The audience was completely still, hanging on every word of this revelation that felt simultaneously intimate and universal. "The last time I saw him, I was 13, Keanu continued, his voice gaining strength as he shared this piece of his history. "I kept hoping for years that he would come back, that he would realize he had made a mistake, that he would want to know who I had become." Marcus was crying openly now, but they weren't just tears of sadness. They were tears of recognition, of finally feeling understood by someone who had walked the exact same path. "But here's what I learned, Marcus, and it took me way too long to understand this," Keanu said, reaching out and placing a gentle hand on Marcus's shoulder. "The emptiness you feel, it's not because there's something wrong with you. It's because someone who was supposed to fill that space chose not to. That's on him, not on you." Marcus looked up at Keanu, his young face streaked with tears, but something like hope beginning to dawn in his eyes. "I want to tell you something else," Keanu continued. "That empty space, it doesn't have to stay empty forever, but it doesn't get filled by pretending it doesn't exist, or by people telling you to get over it. It gets filled when you learn to value the people who do choose to stay. Your mother, who raised you alone, friends who show up for you, people who see your worth even when you can't see it yourself." Behind them, Jimmy was watching with tears in his own eyes, understanding that he was witnessing something extraordinary, the moment when one person's survival became another person's roadmap. "Marcus," Keanu said, "I want you to know something. The fact that you're sitting here, asking this question, tells me that you haven't let it break you. You've let it make you thoughtful. You've let it make you seek understanding. That's not weakness, that's wisdom." The studio audience was openly emotional now, many of them wiping away tears. This wasn't entertainment anymore. This was ministry, healing, the kind of human connection that reminded everyone present why stories matter. Why vulnerability can be a gift. "I want to give you something," Keanu said, reaching into his jacket pocket. He pulled out a small silver coin, simple, worn, obviously carried for a long time. "This is something I've carried for 20 years. It was given to me by someone who told me that every time I felt that emptiness, I should remember that I get to choose how to fill it, with kindness, with purpose, with love for the people who deserve it." He placed the coin in Marcus's hands. "I want you to have this, not because it's magic, but because I want you to remember that you're not alone in this feeling. And more importantly, you get to decide what kind of man you become, regardless of what kind of father you had." Marcus was sobbing now, clutching the coin like a lifeline. "But what if I don't know how?" Marcus whispered. "Then you ask for help," Keanu said, simply. "You find mentors, teachers, coaches, older brothers who can show you what good men look like. They're out there, Marcus. Trust me." Jimmy approached them then, his own eyes bright with emotion. "Marcus, you know what? Keanu's right about finding mentors, and I know some people who would love to help with that." "Actually," Keanu said, turning to Jimmy with sudden determination, "I want to do something. Marcus, have you ever heard of Big Brothers Big Sisters?" Marcus shook his head. "It's an organization that pairs young people with adult mentors. Good people who volunteer their time to be the positive male influences that maybe weren't there before." Keanu paused. "I want to personally ensure you're connected with someone amazing. Someone who can show you what it looks like when an adult chooses to show up for a young person, just because you matter." The audience erupted in applause, but through it all, Marcus's voice could be heard. "Thank you for understanding." "Thank you," Keanu replied, "for reminding me why it's important to talk about these things." As they embraced, Jimmy stepped forward to address the cameras. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "sometimes the most important conversations happen when we stop pretending everything is okay and start admitting that we all carry something." The episode that aired became one of the most powerful Tonight Show segments in the show's history, generating millions of views and countless messages from viewers sharing their own stories of abandonment, resilience, and healing. But more than the viral impact, it sparked a real-world movement, with Big Brothers Big Sisters reporting a surge in volunteer applications and young people seeking mentorship. 6 months later, Marcus Chen stood on a stage at a Big Brothers Big Sisters fundraiser, sharing his story and introducing his mentor, a kind man named David who had chosen to show up for a 17-year-old who needed to learn what a good father looks like. In his pocket, he carried the silver coin Keanu had given him, but he also carried something more valuable, the knowledge that being abandoned doesn't mean you're abandonable. And when Marcus finished his speech that night, the first person to approach him was David's teenage son, who said quietly, "My birth dad left too. Can you tell me how you got through it? Because sometimes the most powerful thing about surviving is not what it teaches you about yourself, but what it allows you to teach others about what's possible."